Hello, this is Allison Church. I hope you're having a good day. I thought I would tell you about another one of my supernatural experiences. About roughly 2 years after I went to the Sally house, friends of mine asked me if I wished to go to Stull Cemetery. Now, to you people who don't know where or what Stull Cemetery is, it is listed by paranormal believers and researchers as one of the gates to hell. And it's in Kansas, a little bit north of Atchison. It was actually used once on Supernatural as a plot line for the Winchesters to, go to hell and retrieve. Dean was able to retrieve his brother's soul and make him whole again, and yada yada. Because of that, there's been a lot of traffic around the cemetery, and they're very strict about trespassing laws. So I went prepared. Now, this was back in the time when before I came out, so I was still, 100% boy. Blonde-haired, blue-eyed, every bit of the Irish Scandinavian stock that I'm from. I dressed up all in black, and I carried around a black book, and everybody said, why was I doing that? I said, you will see. So we went to Stull Cemetery, and they had put up around the ordinary stone fence that surrounded the cemetery. It was a very small place, nothing like it was shown on Supernatural. I say maybe there's less than 150, 175 grave markers and sites in the entire cemetery. But it does have a lot of superstition and lore behind it, which I will share with you. But first, we went to the cemetery. Here I am dressed up all in black, my short blonde hair just fluttering in the wind. And while we go up into the cemetery, there's these huge signs that are written, no trespassing. Violators will be persecuted under the full extent of the law. That made me pause for only a second. I started putting the book in my hand like this, and I'm walking up the way into the cemetery. The minute we entered the cemetery, there's these houses on the other side of the street. These people came out of the houses, and they're watching us. They got their eyes on us. So we're walking around, and a friend of mine is using his ionic detector, and the other one's got an EMF, and they're both very subtly using it. High readings everywhere. And I looked up to see if there were any electrical lines that were surrounding the cemetery, and there were not. So that was weird. I even checked to see if the new fence that they put up was electrified, which it was not. All of a sudden, we see these guys in this, Cadillac or silver car. It was a very nice car, I should say. And they're driving by, and they're wearing sunglasses. And son of a bitch if I didn't think they were the men in black. Probably just a coincidence. But these people, they kept staring at us, and I told them, I'm saying, guys, come around me. And then I started pointing to the cemetery markers and everything, and I patted one of them on the shoulder. And then I looked over at the people, and I waved at them. One of them waved back. And then someone said, what are you doing? I said, I'm trying to get these people to think that I'm a priest, and I brought you here to see a relative. And then it all clicked together for them, and they go, oh. And one person said, we're still getting arrested. So I was a little bold and stupid back in my younger days. There is a ruin there that used to be a church. I do have pictures of the church before they demolished it. But it's a big pile of yellow rocks now. Unless you knew it was there, you would just assume it's a pile of rocks. there's a dark history behind this church. This church was being put together by a couple prisoners that were being used as forced labor by the township. And the next thing that happened is, of course, there was a fight between the two prisoners, and one of them was killed in the church. And since there was a death on what was then technically unconsecrated ground, the church could not be used for what it was intended for. So it just sat there and rotted away. Some say that it's haunted. Some say that if you go there on Halloween at midnight, when the church was there, and sat inside, it had no roof. The roof had long since rotted away and collapsed. They say that you could see the crucifix on the altar invert and go upside down around midnight. Now, even though I call bullshit on that one and tourist trap, these certain stories add a sense of lore and dimension to an otherwise mondo blase adventure. So I enjoy them. There's also a story of a witch that was hung by a nearby tree, and it is called the hanging tree by the locals. And her body was supposed to be buried in a shallow grave. The legend is that she was not only a witch, she was also a bride of Satan, and she was carrying Satan's child at the time that she was killed. And they also say that around midnight on All Saints' Day, you can hear Satan cry and lament over the grave of his wife and his unborn child. There is talk that when the Pope is flying over North America, they do it in a way where it takes them a northerly route above Kansas, because if on the off chance that Stull Cemetery is a gate to the nether regions, they don't want the Vicar of Christ to fly over that. I can see that. I mean, if it is true, I mean, there's not a day that goes by with all the doubts and fears that I have that I don't ask myself, what if there is a God? And I do believe in God. But that wasn't yet the weirdest thing that happened to us. A friend of mine bought a brand new phone, and he went into what was the ruins of the church, and his phone made a loud popping sound. He picked it up and he looked at it, and there was a box with a red X on it. This was an indication his salesman didn't tell him about. And it said on it, not a legitimate signal or something like that. It wasn't coming from a carrier that was recognized by the programming in the phone. Couldn't get it to work. Less than a day old. Now, granted, it could be operational error. I mean, every one of us, when we've gotten our phones, we go mad trying to figure out the switches, the doodads, and the thingamajigs. But that was a strange moment. The mysterious men in black in the silver car drove back toward us. And my heart skipped a beat, because right behind this car was a sheriff's car. They came by and they slowed down, and I looked at people and I said, I did this, and I waved at the sheriff and I go, okay guys, don't lose your cool. Inside I was shaking like a mofo. I'm thinking, I'm going to go end up in prison with some drunk Otis guy who's going to make me his new toy. And I just calmly, I put my Bible, right, or not my Bible, but my black book. That if you looked at it and you didn't know what it was, you would assume it was a Bible. And I put it like this, and I looked at him and I waved. You know, looked like I didn't have a care in the world, though I was petrified. It was an interesting experience. Stull Cemetery does have some activity. But other than the concern of its citizens, and the weird occurrence that happened inside the church with my friend's cell phone, I wasn't that impressed. However, about 3 or 4 miles after we left, there was another loud pop on my friend's phone, and it started working again. We went to the place where he bought the phone, and we asked, could it have been out of service? And he asked us where we were. And he said, no, they had within a relative distance, 6 towers that phone could have bounced off of. So what caused him to lose signal inside an unconsecrated ruin of a church where there was once a murder and the hanging of a witch nearby? It couldn't be explained. That's why I like to investigate the paranormal, because I love stuff that I cannot explain. Okay, that was my ghost story. I'm still working on my novel, Battle Not with Monsters. I'm at the tail end of my first rewrite. Then I'm going to do 2 more proofreads. Rule number 1 for anybody who's out there who is aspiring to be a writer, even though you hear me say that I am proofreading it and trying to polish it to the best of my ability, it's been my experience that writers cannot edit their stuff. Because even though our eye is reading the word on the page, our mind is saying what we already know. And it's also subconsciously too dear to me for me to, chop off a paragraph or rephrase a sentence unless it's to improve the story. That's why they got editors. Well, I'll keep you updated on that. I'm hoping to have it ready by sometime in March, where I can start to send it out to people and get a plethora of rejection letters. Yay. I've gotten to the point on my rejection letters that all the old people out there, or I should say chronologically gifted people out there, who remember the old Johnny Carson show, where he would take the sealed envelope from a mayonnaise jar and put it up to his turban and tell you the answers and then all that stuff. I'd gotten to the point with my rejection letters from literary agents and publishers that I can actually recite the polite way of them saying, we didn't want to look at your stuff because we got to go with the people who make us money already, and it's all about who you know and how you blow who you know. Now, the ones that throw me off and I find insulting are the rejection letters where it's dear blank, and then it's the rejection. They didn't even have the time to write my freaking name in the blank. That's show business. That's baseball. Okay, now a transgender moment. I was at the store the other day, and I was just minding my own business, doing my shopping, and the next thing I know, this guy comes up to me and says, you should remain a guy. You should remain a guy. And, when someone comes up and says something like that to you right out of the blue, you want to put on the brakes and find out what this person is referring to, although I kind of had my suspicions. And I said, excuse me? He said, you were born a man, you should stay a man. I was having a very, very bad day. And he poked the bear. And I looked at him, and I looked around the store, and I said, you know what? Fuck off. And then I just took my stuff and just casually went. Now, is it wrong for me to say that as I was walking away, I was praying that he would want to come and hit me or push me or something so that I would have an excuse to turn around and whop him one in the mouth? I'm a very peaceful person and kind by nature, but after almost a year and a half of civilized cruelty, I don't know. I'm glad I know Aikido. I've had to use it a couple times. I've never understood why it's wrong in a nation that was built and thrives on change and individuality, that it's odd when you change and you try to be individual. You're not a cookie cutter gingerbread person who goes to work, punches the clock, waste a day of your life for pittance, and then go home singing, "Everything is awesome." I don't know. That's not the America I believe in. Well, I'm sorry. I talked a lot today, and I apologize for that. But I wanted to let you know that I really appreciate everything that you guys do and all that you tell me, and the appreciations and the concerns and the comments that you leave on my post. I read every one of them, and I react to every one of them. So your voice is being heard, and I like the chime of it, and it makes my day. So I will leave you. You'll have a 3-day hiatus from me because I got to work this weekend. New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, I got to work both those days. Not really a big deal to me. I don't drink that much. I'm one of those people that live under the philosophy that if you're going to drink, do it at home, so that when you wake up, you have no one to apologize to. So there's that. I do wish all of you a very safe New Year's Eve, and I hope and pray that you have a prosperous and peaceful and happy New Year. This is Allison Church, and this has been Allison Through the Looking Glass. I want you all to try to be kind to each other, take care of yourself, and above all, be happy.